So my name is Martin Gonzalez Arceo, and my dog journey is, I guess I was just born into it. What really got me in my dog journey is my family. So my family is, I come from dog people. My family came from Mexico, and in Mexico, way back in the day, my great grandfather, I can remember him. He was the dog man in the family, and he had his dogs inside the house, and not many people did that in that time in Mexico. And he was a job that they call an arriero, which was pretty much he was in the shipping business. They do loads of gravel, sand, cement, firewood, whatever needed to be transported. But they did it by mule back in the day because they didn't have a lot of trucks, and the roads weren't really that great anyways. Half of them were just trails cut through them out of the yard, and he was a good dog. We fell through some hard times, and the dog got old, and then after that, uh, we ended up living on a farm, and we had shepherds and German shepherds and Australian shepherds. They were really good dogs. For the chickens, they would guard the chickens. The, the Aussies, the Aussies weren't the best with the chicken, and well, you're probably wondering now I'm talking about farms and Aussies and shepherds, but I'm an American Bulldog guy. I have the Johnson type, the Bullier type American Bulldogs, and that was when I had a Shepherd and a Pit Bull. They were just too much. They were some working dogs for sure. And American Pit Bull Terrier I had, he'd clear a 6 foot fence, no problem. He would just jump it. He stayed in it though because he knew it was a buck. So I met another American Bulldog breeder in the weight room, and he showed me his dogs, and I thought they were pretty cool. His name's JC Picking, a DDP American Bulldog, and he was having a litter. I can't remember what he was charging. It was maybe $1,200 for a pup. And I'm like, oh, no way, I can't do that. It was my freshman year in college, and I didn't really think I was going to get one. But I went to go look at him anyways. And man, when I saw those dogs for the first time, I was in love. I loved the look of them. They just looked so powerful, so bully, but they were just gentle. When someone said American Bulldog, I was thinking Rattler or Chance from just that movie when the dog and the cat gets lost. Homeward Bound. That's what I was really thinking of when people talked about American Bulldogs. One of the trades I picked up as a teenager was working on cars, and I knew how to paint cars, not like super professionally, but I worked on it a lot at home. And metal shop, I was encouraged to paint cars. What I ended up doing is I did part trade for a pup. I did some body work and some paint work to trade for most of the price of the pup on a newer Jeep for a JC. I ended up getting a second pick out of one of the litters he had, and that dog ended up being awesome. And that dog I would take around, and she got me a lot of looks, a lot of attention everywhere I went. One of the dogs that's in my pedigree a few times, and kind of what I wanted to base off my dogs is the first American Bulldog I saw in person. DDP's Mighty Samson, and he was a big dog. Maybe because he was just the first one I saw, and I fell in love with that dog. But he was really impressive. Um, I got a daughter off of him, and that's when I said, you know what, I'm gonna make sure I place these dogs and breed these dogs to a consistent standard. Like what I need, these dogs are really working for what I need. So I needed a really stable temperament bulldog that's great around the family, that can function. And I'm not talking about like 6 mile hikes, 100-degree weather either. I'm talking about, what most families do, go out on picnics, go to the park, go on some long walks, play with kids and stuff, and have good movement and everything. And just a good temperament that's kind of like a guardian temperament. The colors, I remember when I first got into the breed, black bulldogs and blue bulldogs. They weren't in the standard. People would say, "Oh, those dogs are mixed." People didn't want any part of them. Now, as we go along, some of those dogs are really, really nice with that color that wasn't originally in the standard. But is what I'm noticing is with these colors, people are more accepting towards the colors. Uh, like I said, some of those colored bulldogs are really nice that I'm seeing. Well, the state of Ohio's got some breeders with some really nice colored bulldogs. My wife helps me a lot with these dogs. My dad does too, but my wife, man, she's a trooper for sure. She's got to put up with a lot of it. I'll go work all day, and as soon as I get home and say hi to everyone, and well, I'm gonna go do this with the dogs. And she's like, what could you possibly be doing? It's raining, and it's 9 o'clock outside. It's 9 o'clock and it's raining outside. Like, oh, I can work in the shop. Build some more pens, welcome boxes. Just built this puppy room to be, warm and out of the weather. Our house is raised up. I did a light here. It was this light bulb with like a coffee can. It's something I saw in some DIY somewhere on the internet. And I tried that for a little while, but I didn't think it was working too great. And I pulled it from the dog houses. But yeah, good solid dog houses raised up off the ground is the important part. I have one dog. He's up there in age too, but he just likes to chill. We'll go out on walks, so we'll go. I remember one day we went to a festival. It was a car show, and we were getting ready, and I took him out of the car because we drove. It was 20 minutes out to a different town. We drove. I took him out of the car. We brushed him a little bit, and we stood around talking. And Dot wanted to get back in the car. You know, he's like, "We're not going." All right. He just wanted to get back in the car because these dogs, they're big. You don't want a 100-pound dog running straight at you and hitting you in the knee.
Yeah.
Because that's a common thing with these American bulldogs. Just a little bit of obedience training and uh, some physical stimulation, mental as well. Then it's not a big problem. Progesterone test. If I want to do a progesterone test on a female, I gotta drive hours to a vet. It was just outside of Eugene, Oregon.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of a tough thing to do multiple times a week is do a 4 hour round trip.
Right.
And so, it's hard out here. So that's my short term goal right there is to promote the breed locally and you know, maybe if someone locally, looking for a pet and it could be the right match, that's awesome. If I could place a bunch of dogs locally. If I place them all locally, I'd probably be happy.
If you were going to cross one of your American Bulldogs, what other breed would you use?
If I was gonna cross my American Bulldogs,
Just
I
one of
have
them.
thought about that.
You have?
I've thought about two.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my so the one I would do, maybe think about some more and learn a little bit more. I'm familiar with a little bit of it, but it would be Borble.
Mm-hmm.
I have some basic knowledge that I've read into and looked up, and I think Borble would be a good one. I like the way they look, the reason they were bred for,
Mm-hmm.
and the size. The one I would lean towards the most would be Bull Mastiff.
Mm-hmm.
If I were ever to cross to have more of a working dog, which is what the only reason I would ever do it is Bull Mastiff for the Guardian. You know, uh, they're totally different breed, but they're similar enough where I could predict what they would come out like.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that the function that the Bullmaster brings to the table as far as being a guardian, close quarters, property guardian. Uh, I think they would do really good. Uh, guarding the home. I have chickens. I like some have hens. For the eggs, for the meat, raising them. Uh, I think they would be. good for that too. For predators, like if raccoons, I had raccoons get to my chickens a few months ago, and I'm doing that too. So I had to redo the coops. Uh, Smaller chicken wires. These raccoons would just reach in there with their hands and pull the chicken out by the head as far as they could and eat what they could pull outside. And at that time, I didn't have the dogs out.